I think that you'll find this easy today. All right, so let me get over to the worksheet. All right. All right, so really this next part is just for you, Donald. So y'all can look at this today, but obviously y'all are in this class, so this one won't matter. But right here is my poster for domain and range. So today we're going to be talking about domain and range. And so here's my poster that you can kind of refer to. Again, I know that we got these weird lines here. Those weird lines are actually for tomorrow, so they don't apply to today. Today, the only thing that we really got to know is domain is your X values and range is your Y values. Okay. And at first, maybe, I mean, like I said, when we go through this, I think you'll think this is easy. The hard part is it's really easy maybe to get confused and forget that domain is X's and range is Y's. Now, I don't know if she has a poster up in her room or not, but if she does, the more you look at that poster, it'll just stick in your brain. Like you'll just be able to, like the day of the STAR test, you'll just be able to close your eyes and see the poster in your mind if you look at it a lot. So me, I point to this poster all the time in my classroom, just because the more kids look at it, it sticks. If she has a poster in her classroom, anytime we talk about domain and range, look at that poster and it'll start sticking in your brain. All right, so like I said, this is something that I think you guys will think is very, very easy. One of the things I always stress to my kids is we love easy questions. The easy questions are what get you past the STAR test. You've never, ever passed a STAR test because of the hard questions. You've always passed because of the easy questions. So this is one of those easy questions right there. This is what we want to make sure that we really know. All right. So when we take a look at this real quick, okay. So it says that we need to find the domain and range. All right. So it says the domain is, make sure I'm out of y'all's way. So the domain is our X's, and it's that simple. The domain is all I need you to do is to look right here and tell me what are all the X's. Now, I don't require my kids to put these in order. I don't know if she will require it or not, but I just don't ever worry about order. On a test, they'll always be put in proper order. And I have a little trick. Unfortunately, you guys aren't going to get to see it. But to help you put them in order when it's multiple choice. But for right now, we're not going to worry about putting them in order. So all we're going to do is you're going to write down what all the X's are. So my first X is 3. So you'll put 3, comma, -1. Oh, okay, that's lovely. So -1, comma, -6, comma 1. And what makes this so easy is, I don't know how good y'all are at math, but there's no math involved in that, is it? It's just simply, you know, domain is X's. What are my X's? You know, all you got to do is list them out. That's it. Okay. And so one of the things that I tend to stress to kids is when there's no math involved, man, that's the stuff that we want to be good at. Okay. So there's no math involved. So even if you're terrible at math, then this right here should be pretty easy. All right. And then range is our Y's. So range is the Y. So all we're going to do is list all the Y's. So we got -4, comma 7, comma -8, comma 11, comma 13. And that's it. You're just simply listing out the X's and listing out the Y's. And like I said, that is a STAR question right there. Okay, at least one. Sometimes if we're lucky, there's 2, but at least 1. Okay, and all you got to do is tell me what the X's are, tell me what the Y's are. Boom, you're done. Now, so I did say that one of these was a little bit difficult. It's actually going to be number 2 is the one that's a little bit difficult. Okay. I want to say usually on the STAR test, they don't give us the question to look like this, even though they could, which is why we go over it. And there is a little trick, and you can see on this paper that they've kind of helped you out. The trick to this is whenever you're doing domain, so domain is the X's here, we want to make sure that you go from the dot to the X-axis. Now, what makes this one kind of difficult, so I'm going to go from the dot to the X-axis, is they didn't They didn't put any numbers here. Okay. On the STAR test, they will always put numbers, always. Okay. They will never do what they've done here where they just left these blanks. So they'll always label this. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you right here, like this is -1 right here. This is -2. So you can see this first dot. We're going to go to the x-axis because domain is the x's, right? So we're going to go to the x-axis, and what number did we hit here? -2. Comma. We're going to go to our next dot, and we're going to go down to the x-axis. And we hit -1 right there. All right, so this, they labeled 2. We're going to put 3, 4, 5, 6. So this dot, we go to the x-axis and we hit 6. And that's my domain right there. You just go to each dot and go to the x-axis. That's it. Go to each dot, go to the x-axis. Boom, got your answer. So what makes this a little bit more difficult is that you've actually got to know that you're going to the x-axis. And I get kids that get this backwards all the time. And they'll try to trick you because they're not going to give you like a lot of times 3 dots. They'll give you like 1 dot. And then they'll say like, what's the domain or range? And then people tend to go to the axis it's closest to. Instead of saying domain, go to the X, range, go to the Y. So I don't know, that one right there can be a little bit tricky, but usually we don't see these on the STAR test. All right, range is going to be the Y's name. So now we're going to go to each dot again, but this time we're going to the Y axis. Okay, so I'm going to go to this dot right here. You can see they've already got the lines there. So this right here would be -1, -2, -3. So this will be -3. We'll go to this dot right here. And it's 1. And by the way, it doesn't matter like if you go the same order I do. Like you could have gone in a totally different order. As long as you get these 3 numbers right here, you're going to be good. So this is 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this top dot right there would be 5. So even if you started at this one and did 5, and then -3, and then 1, you could go in any order. Okay, as long as you know it's those 3 numbers. So that's the hard one right there. Especially like if you get confused which one's the x-axis and y-axis. The STAR test should always label these right here. It should always label them. So if you use the labels right there to go to the right axis, you should be good. All right, has everybody got those written down? Everybody got them written down? Okay, make sure you get them written down. So I got to erase it to move on. So like I said, when you're doing the STAR test, this is what you're looking for right here, okay? I'm assuming that y'all know that they're not getting rid of the STAR test this year. They're making everybody take it. You do have to pass it in order to graduate. And so one of the things I tell my kids all the time, taking the STAR test, typically you think of that, being a terrible thing. But one of the things that we're going to focus in on this year is we're focusing in on all the easy stuff, especially because we've had all these breaks. These breaks have been terrible. It's been hard to learn stuff. So like in this unit, we should be learning this year, okay? Now look at this. Tell me if this doesn't look like Chinese right here. Look at all that crap right there. Yeah, I'm skipping all that. We're not teaching y'all that right now because we've had so many breaks. If I was to try to cram that in, kids would get so like frustrated and confused, they would just quit. Does that make sense? So we're really focusing on the easy stuff. Now, I don't know if she teaches this or not, but we definitely talk about it in this classroom. Anytime we do see hard stuff, does she teach y'all to guess? Guess C? Is that what you do? Very good. So anytime that we have hard stuff, and is there going to be hard stuff on the STAR? Yeah. But we're going to guess C every single time. And that means we might guess C 30 or 40 times on the test. And y'all, I know that sounds crazy, but it works. What y'all have to be awesome at is this easy stuff, the calculator stuff that hopefully y'all have been learning. If y'all been learning that calculator stuff and you're learning this easy stuff that we're teaching you, I'm telling you, the STAR test will be something that's actually pretty easy. Now, if you don't learn this stuff, well, that does suck because then you got to take the test like 3 or 4 times. You got to come. I'm the one that teaches during the summer how to pass the STAR test, you know, and that's it sucks when you have to take this. The STAR test once sucks, right? Taking a 3-hour test or actually it's a 4-hour test sucks. You know, having to take it 4 or 5 times. I had a senior I worked with 2 summers ago that had taken the test 7 times and still had never passed. The funny part is one day working with me and doing these strategies right here, he actually made a B on the test, which what we call meets. He had never passed it before. So this stuff that we're doing, it actually, I mean, it works. We're not worried about all that hard stuff. Make sure you know this. So when we look at this right here and it says domain, domain is X's. Now X's always go on the left. Always. I don't care what the situation is. X's are always on the left. So what are my X's right here? Just what do y'all see here? What are my X's? Just the 3, -2, and 4. It's that easy. Just give me those 3 that are all under the X. Okay? Range of the Y's. So what are my Y's? 0, -1, and -2. Boom, we're done. I will say the question we tend to see on the STAR test actually looks like this. So they can look like any of these. So they're not guaranteed to look any certain way. But usually, you know, part of my job is to go look at every STAR test that's ever been given and to really know it and understand it, know what the questions look like. Most of the time, the domain and range questions look like this right here. Okay. And so what we have to know here is focus in on the X's first. So I'm going to label just the X's. All right, so domain is just the X's. So I put an X above all of them so that my eyes could focus in on just the X's. So the domain is going to be -1, 5, 2.3, and 4. Now, on the Y's, so obviously, if I didn't label it X, it's a Y, but you could label these as Y's too. But on the Y's, do y'all see how they put the 9s twice? You are more than welcome to write it down twice, but you only have to write it once. Okay? So if they repeat a number, you only need to write it 1 time, but you're more than welcome to write it twice. It's not wrong if you write it twice. But on a test, they're only going to write it once. So we got the 9, and then we got a 7 and a -2. All right, so make sure if nothing else that you at least wrote that down. Okay, so make sure if nothing else you at least wrote that down. All right, looks like everybody's good. Oh, we get another one. And you have Patrick's class? Okay. All right. Come here real quick. All right, and then here's what we're doing. We already did the first page. So just start with here. All right. All right, so we're still looking at this, still the same stuff. Okay, so it's still, oh, we got another one? Yeah. How are we going? Is she better or not? Oh, my, okay. Come on. All right. Who's this? So for today, let's put you right there. Okay. Do you need a pencil? Does anybody need a pencil? You got a pencil? Okay, good. Everybody's getting a pencil? I forgot to check. Yeah, that's. All right. We're on the back of the front page. So we just did the front page, we're on the back. All right. So once again, domain. So domain is going to be your x's. Okay. So domain is just simply what are all the x's right here. So I'm hoping that maybe those of you that were in here when we did the first part have already done this. That maybe you're like, hey, this isn't all that bad. Okay, so what are my x's here? It is 5, -1, -2, 1, and 8. So it's just these right here. Just all those are my domain right there. So make sure you're writing this down. So write that down right there. All right, and then range is always the y's. And by the way, on the STAR test, they never ask you domain and range at the same, well, for the most part, they don't ask domain and range at the same time. They usually just ask domain or they just ask range. Yeah. And so even though we're doing them both today, usually on the STAR test, they just ask you for one or the other. All right, so range is just my y's. So what are my y's? It's 2, 5.8, 6, 18, and 0. Okay. All right, so these right here, like I said, the ones that just have the numbers, so 3 and 4 also, these will be the easy ones. I know this says watch out. You don't have to mark this off, but we're not going to worry about that. All right. So this right here is the one that's the more tough one. Okay, so by far, this is compared to these are the ones that are more tough. So domain is x's. So we're going to go to each dot, and you're going to draw a line to the x-axis. So we're going to start. I'm going to start at this dot right here, and I'm going to draw a line to the x-axis. Now, well, like I said, what's bad about this paper is they don't give you the numbers on every single one of these. The STAR test will, if they give you a question like this. So this is -1, -2, -3. So this will be -4. So our domain right there is going to be -4. Now, this dot also goes to -4. Do you have to write it twice? No, you can if you want, totally up to you. But you only have to write each number one time. So I'm only going to write it once. So both of these say -4, I'm just going to put it one time. All right, let's go to this dot, go to the x-axis. So this was 1, 2, this will be 3. So our next number is going to be 3. And then go to this dot to the x-axis. This will be 4, 5, 6, and 7. So our last one would be 7. So, and like I said, we only got 3 numbers because this -4 technically was twice. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to the y-axis. Okay, so we're going this way to our y-axis. We're still going to go to all 4 dots. All right, so this dot right here, we got -1, -2, -3. So it looks like this will be -4 right here. So -4. Go to this dot, go to the y-axis. That's -3. So this is definitely the tougher one right here. Go to this dot, go to the y-axis. We got 2. And then go to this dot, go to the y-axis, and we hit 3. Now, like I said, on the STAR test, on this this is what we call discrete domain and range. Discrete means that you list all the numbers out. Usually, we don't see it in a graph form. I don't think on the STAR test I've ever seen it on a graph form when it's discrete. It could be, which is why we practice it. It could be. Okay. All right. So if nothing else, make sure you got all these numbers written down. So make sure you got them all written down. Okay. Is everybody good? I don't see really anybody writing, so I'm assuming we're all good. All right. All right, so right here, remember, X's are always on the left. So if they don't label it, X's are always on the left. All right, so domain, they just simply want to know what the X's are. That's it. So, see, I'm going to give you a second, see if you can write down what the X's are without copying me. If you got to copy me, there's nothing wrong with that, but see if you can write down these X's. So domain is the X's. Okay, so there's 3 of them right here. So your answers are -17, -125, and 402. So just simply writing down what they are. Okay, range is the Y's. How are we doing today? All right. We are on the back of the front page. So on the back of the front page. So you know how we're always talking about do the easy stuff? This is some of the easy stuff. Matter of fact, we'll be fine. You'll be able to figure this out real quick. All right, so right here, we're on this bottom one right here. Domain. So anytime we have domain, and I do want to make sure you know where my poster's at right here. So my poster for domain and range is right here. Okay. Domain is our X's and range is the Y's. Okay, so all we did here is the domain is just what are my X's? There's no math involved at all. It's just domain. These are my X's, -17, -125, 402. So just write those down right there. All right, and then range is just the Y's. So all you're going to do is write down our Y's. So our Y's are going to be 80, -16, and -202. And once again, most of the time when we see this question on the STAR test, it looks like this right here. Okay, so usually when we see this question on the STAR test, this is what it's going to look like. Now remember, you only have to write the number 1 time. How many times do we see this -2? See it 3 times. You only got to write it once. You're more than welcome to write it 3 times. So domain is the X's. So I see this -2 here 3 times. I'm only going to write it 1 time. And then we got this regular 2 right there. So that's my domain. Just the X's. And then the range is the Y's. So the range would be 7, 5, -2, and 0. Now, the difficult part to that is remembering X comes first and then Y. What I will tell kids is I don't care if you got to sing the alphabet in your head now, because remember, we're talking about the STAR test, right? So if you break out in the middle of the STAR test, singing the ABCs, it's probably not going to be good. But, quietly in your head, singing ABCs, and you get down to X, Y, Z, it follows the alphabet. X comes first and then Y, okay? So if you're ever not sure, which one's X and Y, just remember it follows the alphabet. X comes first and then Y, okay? All right, so make sure you has everybody got those written down? Make sure you get them written down, nothing else. So just doing that real quick, like if you went up to that top one right there, this one right here, like the domain is just all the X's on the left-hand side. Just write down all the X's. And then of course your range is going to be on the right, the Y's. You're just going to write down all the Y's. All right, so hopefully, now that second one's a little bit tougher. I don't want you to really worry about that. If we have time, we'll go back and do it. But right now, I don't want you to worry about number this one up here, this number 2, don't worry about that. All right. So turn your paper over. Okay, so this one right here, the bad part to this is that, I don't know, there's a lot of numbers here. So we're going to try our best to kind of clean it up and make this somewhat easy. So first off, it says domain. What I personally would do, okay, this is just what I personally would do, is above every X, I like to put an X. You don't have to do that. You put a dot or, anything that's going to make your eyes. So I'm ADD, all right? I don't know if y'all know what ADD means, but I get distracted very easy. So I'm one of those people that, like, when I first got married, I'd be sitting there and my wife would be like, hey, would you mind, going to get me something to drink? And, I'm a good husband, right? So I'm like, oh, yeah. So I get up and I go into the kitchen and I'd get to the kitchen and I'd stop and I'd stare. I forgot why I was there. And so I'm sitting there just in the kitchen and I'm like, why am I in the kitchen? And I'm like, well, I came to the kitchen. I must be hungry. And so I get myself something to eat and I go back in there and I'm sitting there eating. My wife's like, what are you doing? And so early on in my marriage, I thought my wife was going to kill me because I just forget stuff instantly, Now, as we've been married now 21 years. And so now she knows me. So she's like, hey, would you mind going me some drink? Yeah, I'll go you something to drink. I walk to the kitchen. I swear she hears my feet stop. And she knows that when my feet stop, that I'm just sitting there, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, you're getting me a drink. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I get distracted really, really easy, okay? I don't know why it is, but I get distracted really easy. Well, if I see all these numbers right here, my mind just won't let me focus. There's too much going on there, and I get distracted too easy. So I put anything, you could put a dot, but anything that's going to draw your eyes to all the X's that will keep you focused. All right, so here's the little trick that I do to figure out what the answer is. I'm going to look at these, and I'm going to say, okay, I see that this has a -2. Does it have a -2? Well, like C doesn't have a -2, so I know that the answer is not going to be C, okay? Because C doesn't have a -2. Does it have a 4? All of these have a +4, so that doesn't help. Does it have a 5? Only these two have a +5 right here. And does it have a -6? This is the only one that has a -6. So number 1 is B. I'm going to mark that off. So all I did was I looked at each of these and I tried to see if it had it one at a time. And the only one that had all of these numbers right here would be B right here. Now, if this was a true multiple choice, so like I have to reuse these right here. Okay, so I can't, I'm going to get rid of the circle here in a second. That's why we wrote B right there. If this was true multiple choice, as I was doing this, I would be marking these off. Don't mark these off because we're going to use them until I got to that as my answer. However, because of the way that this is today, we have to match all of these. Okay, so we're going to write B right here. All right, so now range is the Y's. So I'm going to put a Y above the Y's. So the second one right there. Now, I do know it's not B because we've already used B, so I'm going to mark B off. Okay, because we've already used B. All right, so I'm going to start with it has to have a +3. So A does not have a +3. Oh, D doesn't have a +3. So just by looking at this +3 right there, I know that the answer's got to be C. Does that make any sense how I'm doing that right there? That is the easiest way to do it. Now, if you're ADD like me, and I'm not accusing anybody in here of being ADD, even though I know for a fact that there's ADD people like me in this class. Okay? If you try to look at all these at the same time and then look at all that, that's just too much. Like if you're simply going, okay, I'm looking for an answer that's a 3, 1, -3, 4, 8. That's just too much. But if you take one number at a time and you say, okay, it's got to have a +3. Oh, that one has a +3. Well, that's the only one. That's my answer. Instead of focusing in on a whole bunch, you focus in on one thing. Makes it so much easier. All right, so mark this one off. Okay, so now we're looking for domain again. Domain is the X's. So we're going to put an X above everything. X. All right, so I'm going to start with -1. It's got to have a -1. Now, D doesn't have a -1. So the answer's got to be A. And then by default, this last one right here would be D. All right, so this is what we're looking for right here, that A, B, C. So make sure you get those copied down. Okay. Some of y'all that are ADD like me and you drifted away for a second, make sure you copy this down. Yeah, has everybody got it? Don't see anybody writing, so I'm gonna assume y'all do. Yeah. All right, so right here, once again, domain. Actually, let's do these two first. These might be a little bit easier right here. Okay. It's already even got it labeled for me. Here are the X's. So domain is the X's. All of these say 2. So there's only one number that it's going to have, and that's 2. So what's the answer to that one? Yeah, it's got to be C right there. That one's pretty easy. All right, they've already got this one labeled for us. So these are my Y's. It's going to have -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. Actually, they put it in the opposite order in the answer, but the only one that has, like I could just start at -2. The only one that has -2 is going to be B right there. So just looking at the -2, this is the only one that has that -2 right there. So this has got to be B. All right, so this one, domains. So I want you to notice there, one of our biggest strategies on the STAR test, and notice I follow this myself, okay? So I've done this for years, and this is what I'm trying to make my students good at. The #1 strategy on the test, you have never passed the test because of the hard problems. Always do the easy problems first. When you looked at those 4, which ones did we do first? We did these because it was easier. They already labeled everything for us. It was so much easier to see all the X's and all the Y's. Always do the easy problems first. Y'all know I suck at English, okay? And so on English, that's how I passed. That's how I graduated, got through English. Okay, I always focused in on the easy stuff, okay? All right, so now this stuff right here is a little bit tougher. So we labeled all of our X's. What's the only one that has 0.5? D right there is the only one. So by default now, this has to be A. All right, so make sure we at least get that copy down. Okay, looks like everybody good. All right. So flip it over. We're on the very back now. All right, so these are organized very nice and neat for us. So hopefully these won't be all that bad. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start right here. Domain is the X's, so we're looking just at the X's. So we're going to start with 0.5. Wow, these numbers are, I mean, that's pretty easy right there. So the only one that has a 0.5 would be C. Yeah, really easy. All right, so find the range. Range is Y, so we're looking for something that has at least a 1, but you're just looking at this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's organized so easy. So the only one that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be your D right there. This does have 1, 2, 3, but it doesn't have the 4 or the 5 there. So that would be D. And then domain is your X's right here. So has to have a -1, and the only one that has the -1 would be A. And then by default, the only letter that's left is B. You can see they all have -3 there. So like I said, hopefully you think that that's pretty easy. That's definitely, like I said, when we talked about passing the STAR test and getting the easy questions, this is definitely one that we want to make easy. Maybe today you don't think it's easy, but we're going to keep practicing it because that's what we do. Okay, we always give you tons of problems. We'll be practicing the calculator more in the next few days. Today, like I said, I just wanted it to be easy because I don't know about y'all, but after just doing nothing but trying to survive the last week, I just wanted to make today easy. So we weren't going to really talk about the calculator, but the calculator stuff is that other easy stuff that we need to make sure that we know. All right. I'm hoping everybody's good. I don't see anybody really. Okay. And so our last set problems. I forgot I was making a video. I hope I was speaking loud enough that they can hear me. Nobody's on. All right. So looking at this one. Okay, so even though this looks weird, this is still set up to where it's really easy to see your X's and Y's. So these are your X's and these are your Y's. They did kind of label it right here. I didn't see that. They put an X next to this. Remember, anytime you got two letters back to back, make a Y. All right? I think we talked about that before we took like a week and a half off. Okay, so anytime you have two letters back to back, don't let these two letters ever bug you. Two letters back to back make a Y. So F of X, Q of X, anytime they put two letters back to back, that's a Y right there. So this is your Y's. All right, so we're looking for anything that has a -3. All right, well, this has a -3, so it's got to be either A or C. But then it also has a -4. So the one that has a -3 and a -4 would be A. So this will be A right here. All right, B says the range, so the range is the Y's. Okay, so we need a -3. All right, we've only got one that says -3 right here. So this has to be C. Okay, domain is your X's. So it's got to start with the 2. Or it's got to have a 2 in it. I shouldn't say it has to start with the 2, but it has to have a 2 in it. So the one that has the 2 is D. And so by default, the last one is B.